Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're completely peeling back the consumer-facing layers of credit scores. We are moving way beyond the basic advice of just pay your bills on time to expose the intense mathematical frameworks that financial institutions actually use to assess your risk. If you've ever wondered what the invisible engine driving global lending really looks like under the hood, well, you are absolutely in the right place.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the core engine, move into the timeline of risk, uncover a little something called reject inference, and finally, explore the frontier of big data and credit. Let's get right into it.
You know, it's really tempting to think there's just a human sitting at a desk looking at your payment history and making a judgment call. But the reality? It involves massive automated decision engines calculating your exact probability of default. We're talking about rigorous statistical models transforming your raw application data into a highly predictive, quantifiable measure of risk, often boiled down to a specific decimal point. Actually, some of these models process thousands of data points in literal milliseconds just to give you a simple yes or no.
Starting off with Section 1, the core engine, expert versus statistical models.
Think about the traditional expert approach as the bespoke artisan craft of lending. It relies heavily on qualitative factors like the 5 C's of credit, assessing things like an applicant's character and overall integrity. It takes meticulous manual reviews and structured interviews. But as you can guess, it just doesn't scale. It's largely reserved for niche markets or startups where historical data doesn't really exist yet. On the flip side, statistical modeling is essentially the automated industrial revolution of finance. It's totally quantitative, completely data-driven, and relies on automated decision engines to make rapid, objective evaluations. It effectively strips human subjectivity entirely out of the equation.
So here's the absolute crux of modern lending, the probability of default, or PD. To nail down this number, institutions rely heavily on formulas like logistic regression. Now, without getting completely bogged down in the algebra here, logistic regression basically models the log odds of you defaulting as a linear combination of your input variables. It takes your age, your income, your credit history, assigns specific mathematical weights to every single one of them, and spits out a definitive risk score. It is the fundamental dividing line between getting an approved loan and getting a rejection letter.
When you map this out, a consumer's risk trajectory is basically a complex moving target. Multiple layers of data, your identity, financial shields, various warning flags, are continuously aggregated to track your upward or downward mobility in the eyes of a lender. It's this highly active, dynamic process that's just constantly churning in the background.
Moving right along to Section 2, the timeline of risk, application versus behavioral scoring.
These analytical models actually change depending on where you are in the timeline. Day 0 is strictly governed by application scoring. Think of this as a static photograph, a single snapshot taken at loan origination to predict your behavior over the next 18 to 24 months, based entirely on what you look like on paper right now. But once you're actually in the door, we switch over to behavioral scoring. This is more like a continuous film tracking your real-time financial conduct. During the observation period, models synthesize hundreds of dynamic variables like your revolving balances and payment velocity to constantly adjust your credit limit and optimize risk long before a realized default ever happens in the performance window.
Now for Section 3, and honestly, my favorite part of all this, the statistical ghost story, otherwise known as reject inference.
Think about this for a second. Statistical models are rigorously trained on historical default events, right? But they only have performance data for the applicants they actually accepted. If a model is only learning from the winners, it introduces massive selection bias. I mean, how do the models know they were actually right to reject the others? What if a significant chunk of those rejected applicants would have been fantastic, highly profitable customers? By ignoring this totally unobserved population, lenders risk building their entire framework on an incomplete, heavily skewed representation of true risk.
So how do data scientists fix this massive blind spot? Well, they deploy some pretty ingenious mitigation strategies. The first is deterministic augmentation, which essentially guesses how rejected applicants might have performed based on hard score cutoffs. Though, to be fair, this can sometimes just bake in brand new inaccuracies. Second, we have reweighting techniques. This is where they artificially inflate the statistical weight of accepted applicants who closely resemble the rejected ones, acting as a proxy. And finally, external data integration. This is where banks actually go out and buy credit bureau data to track down those rejected applicants to see if they ended up getting a loan elsewhere and defaulting. It's super costly for sure, but it completely enriches the training data set with actual observed realities.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, the frontier, big data in credit.
The sheer scale of this current methodological shift is best defined by the 4 V's framework.
We are moving rapidly away from simple linear regression models to highly advanced, non-linear machine learning classifiers, things like neural networks and random forests. These models can handle the incredible volume and variety of modern unstructured data, processing it all at near real-time velocity. The biggest hurdle right now? Veracity. Simply ensuring this vast ocean of new data is actually reliable and hasn't been strategically manipulated by savvy consumers.
We're shifting away from the old paper stacks of traditional models, which relied heavily on just basic payment history and hard inquiries. Today, alternative data is literally mining the Internet of Things. Modern models are looking at vehicle telematics, smart home energy usage, rent and utility payments, and even your digital footprint to build a much more holistic view of your stability. For unbanked populations with thin credit files, this alternative data is a total game changer. It's a revolutionary bridge to financial access, allowing institutions to find hidden patterns of reliability that traditional metrics would completely miss.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final thought. We've seen how credit scoring has evolved from human intuition to strict logistic regression and now to advanced machine learning classifiers utilizing alternative data. With ensemble models analyzing massive, unstructured datasets in real time, the boundaries are really starting to blur. If every digital interaction can potentially act as a variable in a massive behavioral scoring algorithm, where exactly does your credit profile end and your personal life begin? Definitely something to think about the next time you leave a digital trace. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.